Okay, so Riesling, it's that wine that's like got everyone talking these days, bright, crisp, citrusy. Like seriously, you could cut through a buttered pretzel with this stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
So we are diving deep, folks, into the Rheingau region of Germany, which if you know Riesling, you know it's basically the heartland.
Yeah, yeah,
And we're pulling out all the stops. We've got historical records. We've got opinions from experts.
yeah.
We're even going to get a little insider scoop on some of the top producers and how they're like approaching this iconic grape. Are you ready for this?
Oh, I am so ready. What really gets me, when we talk about Rheingau is how far back the story goes. I mean, we're talking ancient Rome.
Wow.
They saw the potential of this little slice of land along the Rhine, and they're the ones who said, hey, let's plant some vines. Some serious foresight,
Okay,
right?
let's talk about recognizing a good thing when you see it,
Yeah.
right? But the Benedictine monks, I mean, those guys, especially at Kloster Eberbach, they just blow my mind. They weren't just making wine, they were innovating, they were experimenting with different techniques, different grapes. It's like they were the Renaissance scientists of wine.
Totally. And,
Right.
their dedication, it basically laid the foundation for what we know as Rheingau today. And speaking of foundations,
Mm-hmm.
Schloss Johannesburg, you can't forget that. The world's first documented Riesling vineyard.
Wow.
Think about that for a second. That means everything. The techniques, the traditions, like the essence of Riesling, it probably all started right there.
Wow, that's some serious lineage. And you can't really talk wine without talking terroir. That magical mix of soil and climate and, human touch. And Rheingau's got serious terroir credit.
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely. This is an incredible interplay between the Rhine River and the Taunus Mountains. You see, the Rhine acts like this giant mirror, reflecting sunlight onto the vineyards during the day and then at night, releasing that stored warmth.
Right.
So it's like constant, perfect ripening conditions.
So the river's like giving the vines a 204/7 spa treatment.
Exactly.
And then the Taunus Mountains, they're not just there for the view, they're actually acting like this big natural barrier against those chilly north winds.
Mm-hmm.
It's like nature built the perfect little wine-growing haven.
Exactly.
But what about the soil? I keep hearing about slate being a big deal in the Rheingau.
It's not just a big deal. It's fundamental. The slate soil in the Rheingau, it's not just dirt. It's like this time capsule packed with minerals.
Mm-hmm.
And those minerals make their way into the grapes. It's what gives Rheingau Riesling that flinty, almost smoky minerality, sets it apart. It's like tasting the earth itself.
Okay, now you're making me want to get all geologist on a bottle of wine and see if I can, like, taste those ancient minerals.
Uh-huh.
But, thinking about slate mountains, it makes me think about, pictures you see of Rheingau vineyards. They're practically vertical.
Oh, yeah. A lot of the vineyards in Rheingau, they're planted on these incredibly steep slopes. Like, we're talking heroic viticulture here.
Wow.
Imagine hauling equipment, harvesting grapes, all while you're basically clinging to the side of a mountain.
Right.
That dedication, it translates directly to the wine, higher quality, because the vines, they have to struggle, right? The steepness forces the roots deep into that slate, searching for nutrients.
Okay.
It's like nature's workout program, making those grapes and the wines more intense,
Right.
more concentrated.
Wow. So it's not just about the romance of the hillside vineyards. It's like the grit, the sheer determination of the winemaker.
Absolutely.
And when you talk about intense concentrated wines, you got to mention Rudesheimerberg Vineyards. They're like the A-list celebrities of Rheingau, right?
Yeah, you could say that. Perfect south-facing slopes, impeccable drainage.
Mm-hmm.
They produce some of the most sought-after Rieslings in the region.
Yeah.
But before we get lost in the world of like high-end bottles, we should really talk about the star of the show, the Riesling grape itself.
Okay, yes. Let's talk Riesling. We've been kind of dancing around it long enough. What is it about Riesling, especially when it comes to the Rheingau, that makes it so special? What are we looking for in the glass?
Riesling, it's all about this vibrancy, this almost electric acidity. It's what gives the wines this amazing ability to age.
Yeah.
But it also makes them incredibly versatile. You
Yeah.
can get bone-dry Rieslings or luscious, sweet, dessert-style wines, all from the same grape.
So it's like Riesling is the blank canvas and the Rheingau terroir is the artist, creating these masterpieces of flavor. But what about those flavors? If I'm sipping on a Rheingau Riesling, what am I getting?
Okay, picture this. You got like the symphony of citrus fruits. Grapefruit, lime maybe,
Yeah.
mixed with stone fruits like apricot and a white peach. And then you have these delicate floral notes, like spring blossoms.
Wow.
And then woven through it all, you get that unmistakable minerality. Flinty, almost smoky.
Mm.
Pure Rheingau.
Okay, I am officially thirsty. But you mentioned different styles of Riesling. And, I've got to be honest, those German wine labels, they can be a little intimidating.
Yeah.
We've got Trocken. We've got Trocken-Bernasleys. Help me decipher this code.
Oh, absolutely. Think of it as a spectrum of sweetness,
Yeah.
right? Trocken, that's your gateway, means dry. So these wines are going to be crisp, refreshing, perfect for someone who doesn't like a lot of residual sugar.
So if I'm like pairing with a salad or some seafood, I'm looking for Trocken.
Exactly. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got Trocken-Bernasleys, which a lot of people just shorten to TBA.
Okay.
Now, this is where things get interesting. These wines are made from grapes that have been affected by botrytis. It's also called noble rot.
Oh, yeah.
It's a type of fungus that concentrates the sugars in the grapes.
Interesting.
And it makes these wines incredibly rare, incredibly sweet, and, yeah, often incredibly expensive.
So it's like the holy grail of sweet Riesling.
Yeah, you could say that. But between Trocken and TBA, you've got a whole world of styles. You've got Cabernet, which is light, crisp, maybe just a touch off dry.
Oh.
Then you've got Spätlese, meaning late harvest. That
Right.
usually indicates a richer, more concentrated style.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Auslese and Beerenauslese, which kind of climb the ladder of sweetness and intensity.
Okay, so basically, the longer the German word, the sweeter the wine. I can work with that.
Right.
But all this talk about styles and sweetness levels, it's making me want to get down to, the real nitty-gritty. Talk about some of the producers who were like out there rocking the Rheingau Riesling scene. I know we mentioned Schloss Johannesburg, but who else should we be keeping an eye on?
Well, one producer that immediately comes to mind is Robert Weil. They're known for being meticulous, real attention to detail. And they really have mastered that entire Riesling spectrum.
Oh, wow.
From dry to sweet, everything in between. And each wine is crafted with this incredible precision and balance. They're like the embodiment of what Riesling can be in Rheingau.
And what about someone who's, pushing boundaries a bit, maybe experimenting with new techniques or styles?
For that, you've got to look at Georg Breuer.
Yeah.
They've made a name for themselves with their dry Rieslings.
Okay.
Their wines are known for being intensely mineral, almost laser-focused, really expressing that Rheingau terroir. They age beautifully, and they really challenge what people think a dry Riesling can be.
This is all so fascinating. It's like Rheingau is this living, breathing testament to the history, the evolution of Riesling. But I have a feeling the story doesn't end there, right? No wine region exists in a vacuum.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges that Rheingau winemakers are facing today?
Well, I think one of the biggest, and it's something that, wine regions around the world are grappling with, is climate change.
Yeah.
Warmer temperatures, unpredictable weather. It can have a major impact on how those grapes ripen and ultimately, the style of the wines.
Right. So it's not just about making great wine anymore. It's about making great wine, like in the face of a changing planet. It sounds like the Rheingau isn't just, sitting back waiting for things to happen. They're taking action.
Oh, yeah. They are experimenting. New clones of Riesling that are more heat tolerant. They're tweaking vineyard management techniques, even exploring things like cover crops to improve soil health and water retention.
So it's like this blend of tradition and innovation. They're drawing on, centuries of knowledge, but also they're not afraid to embrace new ideas.
Yeah.
To adapt to the changing environment. That's pretty inspiring.
Yeah, it is. And it's not just about, preserving their winemaking legacy. It's about ensuring the whole region is sustainable for the long term. You see a real shift towards organic viticulture, eco-friendly packaging, a focus on preserving biodiversity in the vineyards. It's becoming part of their DNA.
I love that. It's like they're saying we're not just making wine, we're stewards of this land, but it's not just about the environment, right? It's about the future of Riesling itself.
Yeah.
How are they ensuring that, future generations, that they'll fall in love with this grape?
They're getting creative. They're embracing digital marketing to reach younger audiences, collaborating with chefs to showcase how versatile Riesling is for food pairing.
Yeah.
Even experimenting with new wine styles that maybe appeal to, a more modern palate.
Oh, interesting.
They're not afraid to, challenge that status quo. Show the world that Riesling isn't stuffy. It's not old-fashioned.
Yeah.
It's dynamic. It's exciting. It's got so much to offer.
Hearing all of this, it really makes me realize that the Rheingau isn't just a wine region. It's like this microcosm of the wine world itself. You've got history, you've got tradition, innovation, and this unwavering passion for quality. It's a pretty incredible story. And speaking of stories, I think it's time for us to take a little break. When we come back, we'll get a closer look at some of those groundbreaking producers who are really shaping the future of Rheingau Riesling.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so we're back, and I am ready to dig into these Rheingau producers. We've been talking about like this perfect storm of, history and terroir and innovation. So I really want to know who's out there, making waves and what makes their wines so unique.
Well, we can't really talk about Rheingau Riesling without circling back to Schloss Johannesburg. I mean, it's not just the oldest Riesling estate in the world. It's like a living, breathing museum of winemaking tradition.
Right. We touched on that earlier, but honestly, I need more. What kind of wines are we talking about? Like, if I want that taste of history, what should I be looking for?
Okay, if you want history in a bottle, you got to try their Schloss Johannesburg Riesling Trocken Silberlack.
Silberlack. Okay.
Yeah, it translates to silver seal, and it's referring to the silver capsule on the bottle.
Ooh, super capsule, fancy. But okay, what about the wine itself? What makes it so special?
This wine, it's like a perfectly tailored suit. It's dry, it's crisp. It's got this mineral backbone that just speaks to the slate soils of the Rheingau. Classic citrus notes, maybe a little hint of white peach, and then that unmistakable flinty minerality that just it screams Schloss Johannesburg.
Okay.
Elegant, age-worthy, and really a testament to, the estate's long legacy of excellence.
I'm already picturing myself like sipping the Silberlack on a sunny patio somewhere, feeling very sophisticated. But you mentioned Robert Well earlier, another like standout producer, and you're saying they've mastered both dry and sweet styles. What's their secret weapon?
Robert Weil, all about meticulous vineyard management and like an almost obsessive pursuit of balance. They truly believe that like great wine starts in the vineyard, and they put so much effort into making sure those grapes reach their full potential. One of their flagship wines is the Robert Weil Riesling Trocken Kiedrich Grafenberg.
Okay, another German word for the wine vocabulary. But seriously, Kiedrich Grafenberg, what's the story there?
That name, that's the Grafenberg Vineyard, a site that is famous for incredibly steep slopes and, those prized slate soils we keep talking about.
Yeah.
Now, this wine, it's a bit of a powerhouse. It's dry, it's intensely mineral, and like the complexity just unfolds in your mouth. We're talking concentrated citrus, stone fruit, maybe even some herbal notes, and then that slate minerality that's almost electric. And the best part, this wine is built to age. We're talking decades, not years.
Wow, a time capsule of flavor. I'm sensing a theme here. Patience is a virtue when it comes to Rheingau Riesling. But let's talk about Gore Brewer, the innovator, the one who's like pushing those boundaries of dry Riesling. What makes them stand out?
Gore Brewer, they're fearless. They're not afraid to experiment, to challenge the status quo, to create wines that really showcase what dry Riesling can be in Rheingau. Intensely mineral wines, almost austere, and they're built for the long haul.
Okay, austere. I like that. But in terms of flavor, what are we talking about? Help me paint a picture here.
Think of it as like a laser focus. Instead of that fruit forwardness you might find in some Rieslings, you get this incredible precision, this purity of expression that's almost breathtaking. One of their most sought after wines is the Gorgbrewer Rudesheimer Berg Schlossberg Riesling Trocken.
That's a mouthful.
It is, but it's worth it, trust me.
Okay, that name definitely commands attention. But tell me, why is this particular wine so special?
It's all about the Schlossberg vineyard. It's one of the most prestigious sites in the Rudesheimer Berg. The slight soils, the steep slopes, the perfect sun exposure. It all comes together to create these wines that are incredibly concentrated, incredibly complex, bone dry, mineral backbone, almost salty, and an intensity that just builds with every sip. It's a wine for those who appreciate subtlety, nuance, the thrill of discovering those hidden layers of flavor.
Listening to you describe these wines, it really hits me that Rheingau Riesling, it's not just a pretty wine. It's like this reflection of the land, the people, the history of this incredible region. It's like a liquid tapestry woven from, centuries of tradition and innovation. But I'm feeling this is just like the tip of the iceberg, right? There's a whole world of Rheingau beyond the vineyards just waiting to be explored.
Absolutely. The Rheingau is not just about the wine. It's about the experience.
Yeah.
The charming towns, the landscapes, the culture. It's all intertwined with winemaking.
Okay, paint me a picture. If I'm planning a Rheingau getaway, where do I go? What do I see?
You cannot miss Rudesheim am Rhein. It's like stepping into a fairy tale. Cobblestone streets, half-timbered houses, cozy wine taverns.
I've heard about the Drosselgasse, this tiny alleyway that's packed with wine taverns and live music. Is it as lively as they say?
The Drosselgasse, it's the heart and soul of Rudesheim. You have to go.
Right.
Wander through this narrow lane, sample the local wines, try some traditional German food, soak up the atmosphere. It's like a microcosm of Rheingau hospitality.
Okay, I'm sold. Drosselgasse, officially on the itinerary. But I'm also curious about Eltville am Rhein, the city of wine and roses. Is that just a marketing thing, or is it truly special?
Eltville is truly special. Beautiful rose gardens, elegant architecture, the historic castle which houses this amazing wine museum, a great place to learn about the history of winemaking in the Rheingau. And there are, some fantastic wineries to visit in the surrounding area.
And of course, we can't forget about Kloster Eberbach, that Benedictine monastery that played such a huge role in shaping, the Rheingau's winemaking legacy. What's it like to actually visit?
Visiting Kloster Eberbach, it's like stepping back in time. I mean, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, stunning architecture dating back to the 12th century. You can walk through the historic cellars, learn about the monks' winemaking techniques. You can even sample some of the wines that are still being produced there today. It's an immersive experience that really connects you to the roots of Rheingau winemaking.
I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. We've talked about the past, the present, even, dipped our toes into the future of Rheingau winemaking. But before we wrap things up, I want to get your take on something.
Sure, what is it?
We talked about climate change, this looming threat. But I'm curious, do you see any potential silver linings in all of this? Could climate change actually lead to positive change in Rheingau?
That's a really interesting question, and it's one that a lot of people in the wine world are wrestling with. Climate change definitely presents challenges, but it forces us to adapt, to innovate, to think outside the box.
Right, like necessity is the mother of invention. So how is that playing out in Rheingau?
Well, one of the most interesting things I've seen is that winemakers in the Rheingau are starting to look beyond Riesling. They're experimenting with other grape varieties, like Pinot Noir, that might be better suited to those warmer temperatures.
Wow, that's a bold move. Riesling has been the heart and soul of Rheingau for centuries. To see them branching out, embracing new possibilities, that's pretty exciting.
It is. It really shows a willingness to adapt, to evolve, to make sure that Rheingau stays relevant, for generations to come.
Mhm.
It's not just about the grapes themselves. They're also experimenting with different practices in the vineyards, using cover crops to improve soil health and water retention, exploring new trellising systems to optimize the sun exposure, and even using really high-tech irrigation systems that deliver water exactly where it's needed, minimizing waste and maximizing efficiency.
So they're taking this holistic, almost surgical approach to vineyard management.
Yeah, precisely. It's not just about reacting to the challenges. It's about proactively shaping the future of their vineyards and ultimately of their wines. And what's really cool is that some of these innovations are leading to these unexpected benefits. Like some winemakers are finding that cover crops are not only are they improving the soil health, but they're actually making the wines more complex.
Wow, that's incredible.
They're creating this virtuous cycle where sustainability and quality go hand in hand.
And another area where Rheingau winemakers are being super forward-thinking is in their efforts to connect with younger wine drinkers. They're realizing that the future of Riesling depends on cultivating those new audiences who appreciate this grape.
Absolutely.
Right. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but I want to hear more about the strategies. What are they doing to reach these new audiences? What's working and what's maybe not working so well?
Well, they're definitely embracing digital marketing. They're using social media to tell their stories, to showcase their wines, to connect with these younger consumers who are increasingly wine savvy and really curious about new regions and styles. They're also collaborating with chefs to create really innovative food pairings that highlight how versatile Riesling is, showing that it's not just, a wine for sipping on its own, but it can be this perfect complement to a whole range of cuisines.
So they're meeting those younger consumers where they are, both literally and figuratively.
Exactly. They're speaking their language, using the platforms they use, showing how relevant Riesling can be to their lifestyles. And what I find really encouraging is that that they're not afraid to experiment with new styles of Riesling that might appeal to these younger palates.
Mm.
We're seeing more sparkling Rieslings, more single vineyard bottlings that highlight like the unique expression of specific sites. Even skin contact Rieslings that offer a more like textural, almost savory take on this classic grape.
So they're saying Riesling doesn't have to be just one thing.
Exactly. They're breaking down the stereotypes. They're pushing the boundaries. They're proving that Riesling is as diverse and dynamic as the people who make it.
You know, listening to you describe all of this, I'm struck by this sense of like optimism and hope that surrounds the future of Rheingau. It's like
Yeah,
they're not just facing the challenges, they're using them as fuel to innovate, to evolve, to create something truly remarkable.
it's really inspiring to see. And it makes me realize that the future of wine, it's not just about overcoming challenges. It's about embracing them as opportunities to create something new, something better, something that's going to captivate people for generations to come.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Rheingau, what's the key takeaway for our listener? What do we want them to walk away with?
If there's one thing I hope our listener takes away, it's that the Rheingau is so much more than just a wine region. It's a microcosm of the wine world. It's a place where history and tradition, innovation, and this unwavering passion, they all come together to create something truly extraordinary. And it's a region that's always evolving,
Hmm.
pushing the boundaries of what's possible with Riesling, proving that this grape can really captivate and delight,
Yeah.
for generations to come.
Beautifully said. And if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, dear listener, I urge you to explore the wines of the Rheingau for yourself, whether you're, a seasoned Riesling aficionado or you're just curious about German wine. I guarantee you're going to find something to savor and appreciate.
And as you embark on your Rheingau adventure, here's something to think about. Will Rheingau remain predominantly a Riesling region? Or will these other grape varieties start to gain a foothold and reshape the identity of this historic region? And how will Rheingau winemakers continue to adapt and innovate, to create wines that appeal to the next generation of wine drinkers?
Such fascinating questions. The future of Rheingau is an open book, and I can't wait to see how the story unfolds. Cheers to the Rheingau and to the future of Rheingau.
Yeah.
All right, so we're back, and I'm still kind of wrapping my head around, all this talk about climate change and the future of Rheingau. It's like this weird thing where this threat could actually push winemakers to like think bigger and maybe even make better wines.
Yeah, it's like they're playing this high stakes game of chess with Mother Nature, trying to anticipate her next move while also creating something beautiful and lasting.
And it's not just about the grapes. We were talking about how, Rheingau winemakers are experimenting with these new clones of Riesling that can handle the heat better, but they're also thinking about like the whole picture, the whole ecosystem of the vineyard.
Absolutely, yeah. They're using cover crops to keep the soil healthy, prevent erosion, experimenting with different trellising systems to, control how much sun the getters are getting. And even like some of them are using these really high-tech irrigation systems that just put water right where it needs to go. No waste, total efficiency.
So it's like this really holistic, almost surgical approach to vineyard management.
Exactly. It's not just reacting. It's about like actively shaping the future
Uh,
of the vineyards and ultimately the wines too. And the cool thing is some of these new things they're trying, they're actually leading to like these unexpected benefits. Some winemakers are saying that the cover crops, it's not just the soil, it's actually making the wines more complex, more aromatic.
Wow. So it's like they're creating this cycle where sustainability and quality just go hand in hand.
Yeah, exactly.
And another thing, where Rheingau winemakers are really thinking ahead is how they connect with younger wine drinkers. They know that like the future of Riesling, it depends on getting these new people, these new audiences to appreciate this grape.
Oh, for sure.
Right. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but I want to dig a little deeper. What strategies are they using to reach these new audiences? What's working and what's maybe not working so well?
Well, one thing's for sure, they're all in on digital marketing. They're, using social media to tell their stories, showcase their wines, connect with these younger consumers who are, a lot more wine savvy than people used to be. And they're curious about trying new regions, new styles. They're also working with chefs to create like really interesting food pairings that show just how versatile Riesling can be, proving that it's, not just a wine for sipping on its own. It can go with all kinds of food.
So they're meeting the younger drinkers where they are, both literally and figuratively.
Exactly, yeah. Speaking their language, using the platforms they're already on, showing how Riesling actually fits into their lives. And the thing is they're not afraid to experiment. You know, they're making these new styles of Riesling that might appeal to those younger palates. We're seeing sparkling Riesling, single vineyard bottlings that really like show off that unique expression of a specific spot.
Yeah.
Even skin contact Rieslings that offer a more kind of textural, almost savory take on the grape.
So, like, they're saying Riesling doesn't have to fit in a box.
Yeah, exactly.
Where am I?
They're breaking down the stereotypes, pushing those boundaries, showing that Riesling is as diverse and as dynamic as the people who make it.
You know, listening to all this, I'm really struck by this sense of, like, optimism, this hope for the future of Rheingau. It's like they're not just like dealing with these challenges, they're using them to like fuel their creativity, to make something new, to make something even better.
Yeah, it's really inspiring to see. It makes me realize that the future of wine in general, it's not just about overcoming the hard stuff. It's about like seeing those challenges as opportunities.
Yeah.
To create something new, something better, something that people will love for years to come.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Rheingau, what's the one thing we want our listeners to take away?
If I had to pick one thing, it would be this. Rheingau, it's not just a wine region. It's like a little model of the whole wine world, a place where history, tradition, innovation, and this real passion all come together to make something really special. And it's always evolving, pushing the limits of what's possible with Riesling, showing that this grape, it can really grab people and make them happy for generations to come.
That's beautifully said. And if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, dear listener, I really encourage you to go out and try some of these wines for yourself. Whether you're, already a huge Riesling fan or you're just starting to explore German wine, I promise you're going to find something to enjoy and to appreciate.
And as you start your Rheingau adventure, here's something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Will Rheingau always be, mostly about Riesling?
Mm-hmm.
Or will we see those other grapes start to take root and change the identity of this region that's got so much history? And how will the winemakers in Rheingau continue to adapt and create these new wines that appeal to the next generation of wine drinkers?
Wow, those are some really interesting questions. The future of Rheingau, it's wide open, and I'm really excited to see how it all unfolds. Cheers to the Rheingau and to the future of Riesling.